I've been deep in these documents, each of which is a piece of evidence that helps me piece together a very important question, which is who got rich off this 20-year war that we fought in Afghanistan? But first, let me tell you what happened on August 15th, 2021. The Taliban had entered Kabul after taking over the entire country of Afghanistan. The war ended as it had begun, with the Taliban in power once again. You probably remember the scenes from the Kabul airport. Total chaos as Afghans tried to flee their country. But there's one guy who saw a business opportunity in all of this. This guy, Eric Prince, generously offered to help charter a plane to evacuate people from Kabul. The price tag, $6,500 per person. That was the market price that Eric Prince decided. But this wasn't the first time Eric Prince used the war in Afghanistan to get rich. In fact, this was one of the last of many instances where this guy profited off the Afghan war. And some of the ways he did it were kind of messed up. So after digging through the numbers, the reports, the Senate hearings, all of it, we've established a list of some of the top people who got crazy, stupid, rich off of the war in Afghanistan.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
Before we get into our list, I want to talk about an important term here, which is government contractor.
$300 million in government contracts.
U.S. defense contractor.
Our broken system of government contracting.
At U.S. federal contractor registration, we know that a government contract is worth more than the dollars awarded.
Here in the United States, we love the free market.
I'm talking about this.
So instead of having the clunky old federal government take care of all things war, we hire a lot of private companies to do it for us. This is companies that make our weapons, feed our soldiers, build our bases, fuel our tanks, and literally fight our wars. Yes, we have private armies that we call security companies that basically are soldiers for hire. What this allows the government to do is post a job out there, like, we need someone to build a road in Afghanistan. And in theory, what happens is a bunch of private companies come together and they all bid on how much it would cost to build this road. And whatever company gives the best price is chosen to go build that road. It's supposed to help the government get the best price. Okay, so where am I going with this? What I want you to understand is that there is this bidding process for private companies to go do things that the government needs. But in wartime, a lot of those processes of bidding go out the window because we're in wartime. So it's like an emergency. So instead, you get a lot of situations where there is no bidding on contracts. The government needs something done in Afghanistan really quickly. This company could do it. Name your price, we'll give you whatever you need.
As a client, the U.S. government is guaranteed to have the funds to pay you and will always pay you.
And it's that very process that allowed people to take advantage of a system to let billions and billions of unaccounted for dollars be poured into private companies. All of this contributed to what a former Secretary of Defense called a culture of endless money inside the Pentagon. Okay, wait, before we go on, I need to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is BetterHelp. I've said this a bunch, I'm gonna keep saying it, which is that I'm a giant supporter of therapy. I think therapy is something that is stigmatized, and specifically for me, maybe it's because I was a guy or something, I don't know, but I never got messaging that I was supposed to go to therapy. But I've been going to therapy for 2.5 years now, and it has truly changed my life. BetterHelp is a service that tries to make therapy more accessible by connecting you, if you want therapy, to a network of over 10,000 professionals. And this isn't like a crisis line or a self-help program. This is real licensed therapists giving you therapy done securely over the internet. If you've ever looked for a therapist, you know that it's really hard. And the thing I respect most about BetterHelp, and the reason why I support what they're doing, is because they're trying to make that an easier thing to connect with a therapist. If you don't like the therapist you find, you can easily switch to a new one very easily for free. And BetterHelp allows you to connect with your therapist in between your sessions to get a timely response for whatever you're going through. So I'm a giant fan of BetterHelp. I appreciate them sponsoring this video. They're giving you 10% off your first month if you want to try it out. There's a link in my description. Clicking that link helps support this channel and gets you started on what could be a life-changing thing. I really support therapy. So check it out. Thank you, BetterHelp, for supporting this video, for supporting my channel. Let's dive back into the video. Okay, now that we understand government contractors, let's get to this list of people who got rich. First up is Robert Stevens, the former CEO of a company called Lockheed Martin. It's a company that manufactures like this helicopter, the Black Hawk. They manufacture missiles, fighter jets, bombs. They manufacture a lot of stuff that we use in war. This company gets a lot of business from the Pentagon. Like in 2020 alone, this company got $75 billion worth of Pentagon contracts. I know that like when we get into billions, it's really hard to like know what that actually means. But just to put it in perspective, the entire budget of our foreign ministry, the State Department, totaled $44 billion. For the entire State Department, all of our diplomacy, $44 billion. And Lockheed Martin alone, this one company, got almost double that to make our weapons. 90% of Lockheed's revenue comes from the federal government. Their core business, the thing that keeps them afloat, is war and security. So Robert Stevens became the CEO in 2004. This was 3 years into the war in Afghanistan. And as the war intensified, so did Robert's wallet. And I know this because this is a public company, and all of the compensation for executives is public knowledge to all of us. You may have to dig through some boring documents like the Lockheed Martin proxy statements from the 2000 annual meeting of stockholders on April 27th, 2000, but you can find it. So let's see how Robert and his war business did in the 2000s. So before the war, in the late 90s, the CEO of Lockheed Martin was making around $2 million a year, if you include his salary and bonus. $2 million bucks. It's a pretty good compensation. Okay, but then the war started. Lockheed started to get a ton of contracts, started making more weapons, and look what happens to the CEO's compensation. His salary stays about the same, just over $1 million bucks, but his bonus now jumps up to $3.2 million, bringing his total compensation to around $5 million. This guy's making $5 million bucks. War's doing pretty good for him. Not bad. Let's jump 1 year later. It's now 2006. And Robert Stevens, the CEO of Lockheed Martin, brought in $18 million. Wait, what? From 2 million to 5 million to 18 million. Whoa, Robert Stevens is doing pretty darn good. Okay, but let's keep going. The year after that, Robert Stevens brings in $30 million in his compensation. 31 million. $31 million. Non-equity incentive plan compensation, $8 million. Holy smokes. What? $30 million in compensation? I mean, if we were to like graph that, the war starts here. We're looking at something like this, and this. The war was a life-changing event for Robert Stevens, the CEO of Lockheed Martin. Okay, so that's our first guy who got super rich. Let's move on to the next one. A guy named Stephen Orenstein. This guy's company, called Supreme Group, was chosen in 2005 to feed US troops in Afghanistan, to provide all the food. I mean, when this guy got the contract, I'm sure the only thing that happened is that his eyes started flashing with money. Since he got the contract, Supreme Food's business increased 50-fold. Over the course of 6 years, the Defense Department paid Supreme $5.5 billion to deliver food to the troops. $5.5 billion. And it became 90% of his business, 90% of his company was providing food to troops in Afghanistan. I mean, talk about winning the lottery. But remember what I said about emergency funding and contractors? Orenstein realized that he could charge absurd amounts of money for the meals that he was providing to troops. And he knew that no one would notice because they were just throwing money at this war. The government contracts just kept coming no matter how pricey his meals were.
There's our beef ravioli.
Orenstein was like, dude, there's no adults in the room. Like, I'm a child in a candy shop right now. Let's see how far I can take this. Not only was he charging insane prices for meals, but then he started to create fake subcontracting companies and started to win contracts that were for nothing, and the Pentagon would just pay him a ton of money